Hi again, everyone. This is Nick Shramick with my partner Howard Chao, and we are recording the next episode of our podcast, What's Next In? And today, Howard is speaking to a legal tech startup called NLMatics. NLMatics is a powerful research tool for research and due diligence, which allows access to unstructured data and text in a way that can save lawyers hundreds and hundreds of hours. So it simultaneously searches through research reports, prospectus, customer requests, and all these things that lawyers have to search on a daily basis, and it makes it in a way that's more accessible and you can categorize it in a much easier way. Howard, maybe you can talk a little bit about this the problem that they're trying to address here and what they're doing.
Well, as we all know, large companies, large institutions have reams of data which is unstructured, and where to find the answer to a particular question about across the large number of documents they have may be quite difficult. This team comes from a very large investment bank where they worked on this problem before coming out and spinning out to do a startup. They claim to be able to take very large amounts of unstructured data and turn it into very useful forms, and for example, the documentation in a bank. And if they're able to do this, of course, it can be quite beneficial. They seem to have made good traction with quite a few, several customers already. So very interesting play.
Great, let's get right into it. This is Howard speaking with the founder of NLMatics.
Today we have Ambika Sukla, who is with his firm NLMatics, the CEO, and we also have our friend Joe Green, who's with the law firm Gunderson. He is of counsel and the chief client experience officer, as I understand it, and
director of client experience, but I'll take the promotion.
Okay. We will be interviewing Ambika and asking him about his company. But before we jump into that, I'd like to ask Joe to just give a quick introduction of who he is and what he does.
Absolutely. Well, thanks, Howard, for putting this together. We're looking forward to this discussion and hearing Ambika share what he's working on at NLMatics. As Howard mentioned, I'm Joe Green. I'm Gunderson Detmer's Director of Client Experience. I'm also of counsel in the firm's New York office, but I don't practice anymore. I rejoined the firm at the beginning of 2020 after having been a practicing lawyer at the firm for the majority of my years in practice. And then doing a 4.5-year sojourn at Thomson Reuters, working in the legal tech space at TR. And my role at Gunderson is basically our practice innovation initiatives, our data initiatives, and generally thinking about the future of the firm and where we're headed and how we're trying to deliver better value to our clients.
Great, thanks for that. So Joe, obviously you have a lot of background in the legal tech industry and the perspective of both the law firm and a big corporate vendor. And also, I think you know the investor perspective as well. So I hope you'll bring all those to bear as we grill Ambika during this interview. Okay.
You bet.
Okay, so let's turn to you, Ambika. Could you give us quickly your potted version of your origin story for both the company and a little background on yourself as well?
Sure. Again, thanks, Howard, for putting together this interview. And thank you, Joe, for joining us today. I'm Ambika Sukla. I'm the co-founder and CEO of NLMatics. And before starting NLMatics, I was a senior executive at financial services firms, Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley. I'll talk a little bit about how this idea of NLMatics started. This was year 2015, and I was working for a large investment bank, Morgan Stanley. I had just started their artificial intelligence lab. And as I started talking to senior executives across the firm, one thing I heard many times, one of the most biggest priorities, top priority that people had was, not surprisingly, for a financial firm, there were hundreds and thousands of different kinds of financing agreements. And there was this desire to be able to scan through these thousands of financing agreements and get all kinds of data so that they can find new opportunities and reduce their risks. And just to kind of talk a little bit more about what I mean by financing agreements, if a company is raising capital, they have two different methods. Either they can go the equity route or they can go the fixed income or debt route. If they go the equity route in the public market, there is IPO, and that involves a IPO prospectus, which is a legal document, and there are a variety of addendums that comes with that. If they go the private market, which will be in the space that Joe is in, there'll be venture capital, a variety of agreements that are related to venture capital. If they go the debt route, then either they can raise a public bond, which will be a bond prospectus, again a large legal document, and if they can raise a note, which is an indenture, or they can work with smaller loans, which will be credit agreements for leveraged loans and things like that. So in a financial firm, as you can imagine, there are bond traders, there are CLO portfolio managers, people who manage loans and portfolio. There are folks from capital market team who structure these securities for the entire market. All of these folks, they need to, for their day-to-day job, they wanted my team to look into this problem of extracting different kinds of data points from these agreements. And for 4 years, we tried really hard to solve this problem. Initially, we started by working with different types of vendors, specifically the contract analytics space vendors. And we quickly found out that we cannot extend their products for the financial agreement type of use cases. We worked with enterprise search engines, which are really good at finding your documents, but they cannot search within documents. Then we worked with text analytics tool, and we found that was pretty hard too. And it so happens that just to implement one such use case, very small subset of what this entire space is, for my team, which was consisting of senior researchers, it took us almost 2 years just to roll out one solution. So that is when the idea of NLMatics formed. And I thought that, what if we make it super simple for legal teams, for financial services firms who are looking at these legal documents? What if we make it super simple for them to extract any data point they want from these documents? And that's what we do at NLMatics. We provide the simplest way to extract data points from these lengthy and complex legal documents.
So Ambika, are you a spin out then from Morgan Stanley, and was Morgan Stanley involved in that transaction?
Well, we are not a spin out of Morgan Stanley. This is I solved similar problems at Morgan Stanley. But this is not a spin out. This is really a more elaborate, more flexible solution that is accessible to anyone than what I did at Morgan Stanley.
Okay, good. So it's basically a brand new venture, where you got the inspiration from what you were doing at your prior work there at Morgan Stanley.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. Very good. All right. Great. Do you want to tell us about what the essence of your technology is? I mean, what do you do? How do you do it? We get the basic problem that you're solving, but is it AI? And how does it work?
So this is a three-part process. The first part is where is the parsing part. So when we look at a legal document, we look at it very differently from how anybody else parses it. We understand the document thoroughly. We know where the tables are, where the lists are, where the sections are, where the articles are. We nicely segment the document and parse it so that we know the structural form, the contextual form of the document. So that is number one, first part of our IP. The second part is that we want the data extraction process to be extremely simple, that any data analyst can work on it. Even legal professionals can work on this without having to learn to code, without having to learn how to train models. So we have a simple query-like interface, natural language query-like interface, where someone who does this already day-to-day manually, they can basically put in how they do it. They can just explain how they do it, where to look for the data, and what data to look for using our query interface. And the moment they hit run, it's going to scan through all the documents and get the data point they want. So we make it very simple. We make it customizable. So one of the things that you don't see in products out there is that they try to extract a handful of fields from a handful of documents, but we can extract any field from any legal document using our technology. So in many ways, you can draw some parallels to having data in Excel format versus having a formula, right? If you have an accounting formula, you are only getting that one result from the accounting formula. There is nothing you can do to change it. But if you have all your data in Excel, you can create your own, you can put these pieces together in your own creative ways to serve your own purpose. So we let that happen with text data. We change text data to data in the form of Excel so that you can roll it up and you can do all kinds of analytics that's going to help you run your business.
And because the universe of documents or types of transactions that you cover sounds like the four buckets that you just described: the public equities, the public debt, the private equity, and the private debt or loan markets. Is that correct? And so that kind of hardwired into your system so that your system is able to, you've kind of taught your system what those documents should kind of look like structurally, and then your system then vacuums those documents into its analytic machine and spits out an analysis and puts the information in a more usable form. Is that a fair description?
I think that's a mostly fair description, except the part where we specialize on these financing agreements, but by no means we are limited to those agreements. That's where we started because we feel that market is underserved. There are lots of contract analytics software out there, but they don't really work with these kind of agreements. So we started there, but we can apply this technology to a variety of legal documents, even to domains outside of legal.
So, for example, if you wanted to move into the insurance industry and you wanted to do large-scale analysis of, policies, for example, that would be easy for your system to do.
Absolutely, yes.
All right. Okay. All right. So, tell us more about how it's going. Who are your targets for customers, and how much progress have you made?
So,
you got one of them right here.
Our target has been law firms and banks, and we again within the law firms and banks, we specialize on capital markets, securities law, private capital law, and in the banks we again specialize on the same type of documents that the folks at banks use. So that's where right now our full focus is on this market, and as we progress, we will want to expand beyond that.
By the way, a footnote. So I don't know if you noticed in the agenda for our meeting in September, the General Counsel of Fannie Mae will be coming, an old friend of mine, and I will be interviewing him during the session. So maybe you ought to be talking to him too if you haven't already.
Yeah,
Joe, you were going to say.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna jump in. So, as I was waving, we actually are at Gunderson are an NLMatics customer, and we before I met Ambika, one of my colleagues, John Scordato, actually introduced us. I can't take credit for finding NLMatics myself, but we had been looking at a lot of different tools to solve this particular use case of not only being able to search and find terms across a large suite of documents, but also be able to structure that data and do point extractions without the need for a ton of post processing to make it usable for analytics. So Ambika, I think it'd be interesting to hear kind of your competitive differentiation, how NLMatics differs from the Kiras and Ebrevias and other kind of machine learning classifiers out there where there's a whole training process if you're gonna be looking for custom data points in a particular way, and then the difference between kind of the point extraction capabilities and more kind of clause level extractions.
Well, thanks, Joe. Our entire team loves working with your team. So to talk about that's a great point, Joe. So the way you set up data extraction in our system is very different from how it happens in everything else that's out there. Almost all the products out there, they want lawyers to learn how to train machine learning models, and they create these elaborate tools where they expect that somebody from their customers' team is going to come forward and train these models with several examples of what they are looking for, and then they will have a system ready. And this mode of training, I saw this back in 2015 as well. It hasn't really changed much, and it takes enormous amount of time to train or extend using this type of process. And many times, even after you spend that time, these things don't really work very well. But what we have done is we have mixed mixed search, and it's really a search-driven extraction. So we know that lawyers are already really good at using different kinds of search tools. What we have done is we have extended that process where you search and you combine that with asking a question. So everything in NLMatics is a natural language question. So if you want to find out if a clause says that some kind of final judgment is a event of default or not, all you have to do is ask a question: is final judgment considered an event of default? So thereby, what we are able to do is that we are able to open up the document quite a bit. And any data point that is of interest, you can, within half an hour, you'll be ready with a new data field that's going to get that document for you. Lawyers love details. The folks who are in banks, they love details. It's all about details for them. Every little detail that counts, we want to make sure that they are able to get to that detail and extract the data point from the documents.
And just, to put a finer point on that, so that natural language question, in most of the tools that I had been trying, what it would do after I trained it is actually just pull out the event of default section and say, we think the answer is in here, whereas NLMatics returns yes or no as the structured output, but also gets you to the actual language if you want to go in and verify it with with a human in the loop, which we've found to be pretty amazing.
That's pretty interesting. And I have a follow-up on that, but just so you know, we're running short on time here, so we got to speed this up a little bit. But so when that happens, that sounds magical and different from other solutions that I've heard of as well. But is that something that you developed in-house, Ambika, or how did you get there? Because and a related question is, you hear about the amazing capabilities of GPT-3. And other massive platforms out there. Are these other platforms going to be able to do this similar thing as you are? And did you develop this yourself?
So everything that we have from all parts of our system is homegrown. All our models, right. The document parsing, creating knowledge map from the document, everything is homegrown, and that's why we can deploy our application either in the public. Or we can also deploy it on-premise. In certain banks, they would like this to be on-premise. We can do that as well. Right. And to your question about GPT-3, I think what GPT-3 is able to do is quite interesting, very newsworthy. But when it comes to creating practical applications, I think the key is how domain-specific you can make it, how much you can tweak this so that it works for you. So our system, that is kind of the idea that we started with, that it's an eminently tweakable system where you can make it exactly do what you are looking for, as opposed to GPT-3, which offers a lot of things out of the box. But if you try to apply that into your domain, into your set of questions, you'll have a really hard time customizing it for your needs. The second is GPT-3 also has some privacy issues. So what GPT-3 does is that it looks through all the data that's out there. So if you have a private document and you have a financing agreement, and GPT-3 is going through all this data for you, it's going to learn like who the parties are and how they are related. And it may also show up when it is answering questions going forward, because it's kind of going through the private data and memorizing it, which is a bit of a concern as well for some of our customers.
Sure. Okay, so two big subjects we still need to cover. One is traction. Commercials, where are you in terms of traction? And second of all, where are you in terms of your capital formation history and plans?
Yeah, so we have, gone through some of our initial goals. I think when you start the company, for a company of our nature, I think one of the biggest risks is the technical risk. And we have, spent enormous time in R&D and, got that working very well. The second thing is we have found, key customers in the main areas where we want to focus on. So now what we are looking for is we are looking to partner with the right venture capitalists. We specifically want to, grow in the capital markets, in the debt and equity capital markets area. And we are looking for, venture capitalists who are really excited about this technology, very passionate about what the possibilities are, and have the experience and the contacts to kind of help us, help take us to the next level.
Thanks. So can you tell us how many customers do you already have? I mean, and sort of break it down a little bit. I mean, law firms, financial institutions, where do you stand?
Well, I can briefly talk about the segments that we are. I'm not able to give that information today, but our law firms are our customers are law firms, banks. We also work outside of this space. We also work with healthcare providers. So these are the three sectors where our customers are.
Okay, and so can you say how much you've raised already, or roughly where you are in terms of capital raising, and how much are you planning to fundraise going forward?
So we are still a seed stage company. We are a profitable company, and we are looking to raise the next round sometime this year. Okay,
good. All right. Well, hopefully you'll find somebody interesting to talk to at our workshop. Joe,
that's never a problem, I find, at Bonnie Doon.
Joe, do you have any other last questions before we call it a day?
No. I mean, I like I said, I've been working with Ambika now for a while, and have been incredibly impressed with what he's been able to build, and also just the way that he partners with customers to make us successful in using the product.
Okay, excellent. Thanks for coming out today.
All right. Thanks again, Joe, for joining, and thank you, Howard.